Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Calistra Farrier. In Guyana, the International Energy Conference is getting ready to start on Tuesday, the 14th of February in Georgetown. And joining me now is Guyana's Minister of Natural Resources, Vickram Bharrat, to discuss with us the energy conference as well as the immense size of Guyana's oil reserves that they are finding and how the country intends to use those reserves to leverage its economic development. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Let me say uh, good day to all the listeners and viewers, because I'm sure you're probably streaming online as well too. And I'm more than happy to be here to discuss what is happening in Guyana.
All right, so the energy conference, you're drawing people from across the world in Guyana, starting tomorrow, Tuesday, to discuss the international energy landscape. What's the theme of the conference, and what's the main objective for this year's conference?
All right, so let me say that for the next few days, Guyana is the place to be. We have a number of exports in the oil and gas sector, a number of potential investors, a number of international companies that are making their way to Guyana right now as we speak. As a matter of fact, we have a number of Caribbean leaders who will be here for the opening ceremony of the Energy Expo and Exposition tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The second of what will become an annual energy conference in Guyana. 2022, I must say, was a major success, and we are aiming to make 2023 even bigger. Now, a lot of people may see the conference and the expo as merely an oil and gas conference or exposition, but we as a government and as a people, we want to look at this conference as more an opportunity to showcase Guyana, not only our vast discoveries and resources offshore Guyana, but what Guyana really has to offer in terms of investment opportunities across all sectors. We have been playing and we've been incentivizing and working to ensure that we grow the non-oil economy at the same time in which we're growing the oil economy. And if you look at our stats in 2022, Guyana has been reported as the fastest growing economy in the world, 62.5% growth rate. And significant to that is our non-oil growth rate recorded at 11.5%. It's actually the second highest in the world. So that is something that we are proud of. So we are promoting Guyana, we are showcasing Guyana, we are bringing opportunities to potential investors, both local, regional, and even to our international investors as well, who may be coming to our shores. It's the idea is to showcase Guyana, I must say.
And the growth in your non-oil sector, the 11%, that is being driven by the discovery of this vast, I mean, we're looking at 10 billion barrels and another 1.3 just announced a few weeks ago in Guyana. That vast amount of oil resources that you have discovered, this is how, to what extent is this helping to drive your non-energy investment in your non-energy sector?
You are right. You are right, and indeed, whenever there is oil, there is immense opportunities, and we have seen the benefits or the spin-offs really from the investment in the oil and gas sector here in Guyana. To date, we have discovered over 11 billion barrels of oil offshore Guyana, and this is only the Stabroek block. Mind you, we have 8 awarded blocks offshore Guyana. We have 14 right now that is being awarded through an open bidding, bid rounds as we call it. That process will close in April of this year. So there is an opportunity for investors to acquire blocks offshore Guyana. What has happened is that the Stabroek block is very prolific. We have discovered over 11 billion barrels of oil. We have 6 drill ships operating offshore Guyana presently. We have 2 FPSOs producing at over 380,000 barrels per day presently. and we have our third FPSO on its way from Singapore to Guyana, which will take our daily production up to close to 600,000 barrels of oil per day. So I will say safely by next year, this time, we will be producing 600,000 barrels per day. And we have been moving at such an unprecedented speed, I must say, because we discovered oil in May of 2015. Our forest oil production was in December 2019. And by next year, January, we'll be producing almost 600,000 barrels per day. And with that, you can imagine the opportunities for investment in Guyana presently. There's so much of spin-off from the oil and gas sector. And if I can take agriculture, for example, the amount of people, the amount of tourists, the amount of investors coming to Guyana, food is in high demand. We have been working with the agriculture sector. We've been providing incentives. We have invested a lot in drainage and irrigation, in basic infrastructure to ensure that we can increase our production. What we would have done too in Guyana is that we would have passed our local content legislation in December of 2021. So what that is forcing the oil companies to do now is to ensure that they do business with local companies, or companies that are in partnership with international or regional companies. But in that partnership, the Guyanese company must hold at least 51%. I'll give you an example. For example, the food supplies that goes offshore Guyana. In our local content law, it states that 75% of that food must be procured from Guyana, from Guyanese businesses. So that by itself presents an opportunity for our farmers, for them to increase production, for them to have the opportunity for their products to actually be sold to the oil and gas companies. So there are many opportunities, for example, to our tourism sector has enjoyed a boost for the last couple of years, since after COVID, I must say. We have about 5 or 6 new hotels that are being built right now, mainly because of the amount of people coming to Guyana for opportunities. A lot of people from our diaspora now coming home as well, looking for opportunities as well. And then we have created an excitement in Guyana, basically. For example, the energy conference tomorrow. We hosted the CPL final last year. We're going to host the CPL and Cricket Carnival this year again. So that by itself is bringing a lot of people to Guyana too. So with all these spin-offs and the activities that we're creating in Guyana, it has created the opportunity in those sectors: tourism, the construction sector, the agriculture sector, and even in my sector, which is also the mining and forestry sector, because we have been trying to grow our jewelry sector. What is happening in Guyana is we have always exported raw materials or primary products. So we are trying to cut down or to hold back on primary exports. Rather than exporting our raw gold, we want to develop a thriving jewelry sector. Rather than exporting our logs, we want to add value to our wood products, to export wood products, in other words. And we have already.
And all of this is becoming even more possible as a result of the oil resources. I know that the first 10 billion barrels that you discovered is worth, like, I think it's a 12.7 billion or so, and I guess the 1.3 is again a large sum. Is that what is now making it possible to enable a lot of this expansion of local manufacturing that you speak?
Yes, I will say partly because of the growing oil and gas sector, the number of investors coming to Guyana now. There are many investors coming to Guyana now to look to invest in the oil and gas sector. But when they reach Guyana, when they speak with us, when they look at the opportunities, they realize that there are so many opportunities outside of the oil and gas sector. So it's partly because of oil and gas that has been bringing investment to our shore, but also because of our proactive approach of the government in providing incentives in the non-oil economy. For example, agriculture, we give land, we give duty-free concession on machinery. We are doing a lot to promote those sectors. Even in the hotel industry or the service industry, we've been giving a number of concession to investors alike too. So while many are coming to our shores because of oil and gas, as a government, we are ensuring that our policy and programs are geared towards attracting investment in all sectors. Because as we know it, the oil and gas sector is not a labor intensive industry. It will not create a lot of employment for people. It is more capital driven, it's more technologically driven. But our traditional sectors, mining, logging, manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, they provide a bulk of employment for people. And we have made a commitment, not only locally but regionally, that we are going to ensure that we provide energy security, food security for the region, and also to ensure that our environmental credibility is intact, because we have 86% of Guyana is forest basically. We have 90% of our forest is virgin forest standing. We are one of the few carbon negative country in the world. So we are playing our role not only as a country, but as a sister Caribbean country in ensuring that there is energy security, food security, and that our environmental credential as a region is intact and secure at the same time.
But on the issue of the local content legislation that you passed, and that got a lot of attention and caused quite a stir, because there were those who argued that your local content regulation might be a bit hostile in the environment of the Treaty of Chaguaramas, free trade and that kind of thing, where you're insisting that on the local content, which is really good for any country's local manufacturers and local businesses, but what it does is close the door on opportunities to some extent of businesses outside of Guyana and within the CARICOM region, where we're looking to come together. That some felt that the local content legislation that you passed was not in keeping with the spirit of things. What do you say to that?
Yeah, we have heard that. We have heard that many times already, as you would presume. But our local content legislation, in Schedule 1 of the legislation, we have 40 basic services. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it. So it is not across the board. It is not saying that every single service in the oil and gas sector must be done by Guyanese companies or in partnership with Guyanese companies. There are only 40 basic service. 40 basic service that we have in-country capacity to do. In the oil and gas sector, and I'm sure you would agree with me, there are maybe hundreds, thousands. So like I was saying, there are only 40 basic services listed in the local content legislation. So any company is only measured based on those 40 services alone. So there are many other areas and avenues that there are investment opportunity that you don't have to partner with a local company. You can come and you can invest and ensure that we will ensure that the local content legislation will not hinder you doing business with the oil companies. What we would have done.
And what are some of those areas that are left open to businesses outside of Guyana, CARICOM, your CARICOM brothers and sisters, to be able to do business in Guyana that will not be impacted by your local content legislation? Any specific areas you can point to?
So even within the 40 services that we have in the legislation, take, for example, food, as I mentioned, food supplies. In the legislation, it states that 75% of the food supply must come from Guyana. So right there's an opportunity for 25% to come from outside of Guyana, be it the region or elsewhere. And there are many other of those services in the 40 that are not 100%. Some are 30%, some are 50%, some are 20%, because we are catering, or we want to leave the door open for companies to provide goods and services outside of Guyana, be it in CARICOM, be it in the US, be it internationally. However, outside of the 40, there are so many others, especially in technical area, the subsea area, drilling, exploration, uh, in terms of consultancy services. There's so many other environmental services. There's so many other areas that the oil and gas company needs service for outside of those 40. If you look at the 40, it's just basic housing, transportation, security, catering, food supplies, welding, fabrication. And as I mentioned, it is not 100%. So there is still room. Yeah.
This is The Narrative, and I'm on with Vickram Bharrat, who is the Minister of Natural Resources in Guyana. We're discussing the country's oil resources and International Energy Conference that opens there on February 14, and being the first country to sell carbon credits. More when we come back.